median assessment ratio is 90%. State law says that we should be at 100%. Generally, we're on the more conservative side, we're around 95. So where we're at 90, you can expect values should be going up 3 to 5%, depending on the class, the style and size of homes. I have 10 condo sales. Our overall ratio on those is 93%, so those may see a small increase.
So when you said expect X% to go up by 3 to 5%, you were referring to single
family.
Okay.
The main category.
Yeah, which is our largest tax
single
base.
family.
Evaluations.
We have it at 90 and we'll expect to go through the 5.
Okay.
As far as building permits, there are quite a number of permits. Unfortunately, the majority of them are not going to add much value, if any, to property values. You're looking at just maintenance type things, windows or roofs, wood stoves still.
So no big
lot of-
additions like what was suggested.
No, so feel free to pull one anytime you want.
And complete it.
Yeah.
Like real quick.
And it has to be done by June 30th.
You only have 3 months left.
So what we had the finance team meeting, when was that? Cynthia?
October, I think.
In the fall, yeah, and I think.
Oh yeah, I called in for that one.
Yes.
Yes, so I believe the preliminary number we gave Danishka was 160,000, which still looks pretty reasonable at this point. I know we still have another 3-4 months of permits to be pulled and such. But that estimate, that's higher than what we estimated last year for the preliminary numbers. And, I think it probably looks pretty good for now.
Of the building permits, how many of those for new construction?
I could count it up, I can have that tally at the top. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5.
Not as many as we'd like.
6, 7, 8, 9,
But it doesn't, I thought.
10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18, 19, 20, about 30. But of that 30, I've already got partial complete from prior years, so there's
Right.
at least 16 of those that are already 50% or better completed, so that's not a heck of a lot of added value there.
Yeah.
Typically, a majority of these we're not seeing done in one fiscal year to add the full
Right.
value.
I mean, because there's not a lot going on. You got Century Mill, then you got the Odd House here
Yeah,
and there.
those,
At Craftsman Village, I see I know they're doing work, but they probably haven't pulled any permits yet.
No.
They're still clearing the land.
yeah, we're not getting
They
a
have
lot of
full
sales over in the
Yeah.
central.
Yeah.
Oh, good.
Yeah.
And those are already, they're reselling, and they're taking a loss.
Craftsman?
No, it's Century.
Century.
Yeah.
Essentially, I'll go back to that.
Well, I saw one in the paper that there's a lot, like $1 million. It's like,
Yeah, right.
okay, for sure.
Yeah.
Yeah, right.
I think it's a home, but it said lot, but like for $999,999,999.
For a lot, huh?
It's not,
That'd be a first.
Yeah.
that just, it was what was on the assessment for the
Right,
year.
right.
It'll say a site improvement, but it would show up as a land sale rather than.
Right. And I'm surprised there are more There are more lots still for sale at Oak Trail than I would have thought. It's what, 7 or 6 or 7 or 8 or something like that. I would have expected less than that from them.
Yeah, out of the almost 90 single-family homes that's sold, we only have 2 that just barely tweaked over $1 million in sale price.
So, on those 90 single-family homes, how many of them were above, were the assessments above where they sold for? Is it a decent number, or are we always coming in several percent low? If it was 90%, there must have been some were.
Yeah, so the good majority of them sold above the assessed values.
I would expect
Yeah.
almost all of them.
No. We were talking about this upstairs, some of the littler houses in town, people trying to get in town from the school system.
Yeah.
Those are being sold.
Those are being, you'll get into multiple offers on them, and that goes to explain somewhat where this percentage is off.
Yeah, the homes that are assessed above $500,000, and your larger homes, may stay flat in value, and then the real big ones are actually gonna see a reduction. Those just are not selling, and they're selling below the assessed values. And that's not just Bolton, I'm seeing that in multiple towns. Yeah.
So, sir, you gave a number of 160, but I see new growth estimated for 165.
Okay,
Does that-
I couldn't remember.
Okay,
I
so-
knew it was in that range, so if it was 165, then even better, then you're above what I was
Yeah.
thinking.
Yeah.
There you go, you're 5,000.
I know, I'm not-
5,000,
I'm not-
you just got 5,000?
Good note taker.
Yeah.
Good note
Yeah.
taker.
I was-
Got it.
There's no point in time.
This, but as you know, this is fairly preliminary. It could be 165. The difference between 160 and 165 is fairly negligible.
Yeah, you really always kind of want to be conservative on new growth. Problem is, if we target high and we don't hit that, then you're going to be scrambling finding money to fund
Yes.
something.
Yeah.
Versus if we're conservative and say we come in at 220, well, now you've got some extra money that can be offset with something else. And
Just, I'm just looking at the actuals. 14 came in at 307 and change, actual 15, 306. So, I mean, that was a couple, last year and then the year before. So, we've been coming out of this market, so there's definitely a lag factor. There's no way you guys can pin that lag on where the cycle is in the actual market, what you're seeing relative to what we anticipate actuals to be.
No, and we didn't have 14, you gotta remember, we had a couple of fairly large condominium
Yeah.
construct, we're just not planting those seeds and having them sprout
that's-
right now.
last 3 years, we had these little windfalls that kind of came in. Like last year, I believe was the
Solar.
first year the solar
Solar.
came on, so we had a large windfall from that. I believe the year before that, we had a windfall from power lines.
Yeah.
So
18.
you get those things that we don't know about or have much control over until they just kind of get thrown in your
Yeah.
lap.
You can't forecast them.
Mhm.
But after the huge storms, then the infrastructure for the power lines, then some new growth.
Yeah, 3
A
or 4
couple,
years ago.
yeah,
there was some
then that came through,
cell
it was like,
tower
oh, look
money
at that.
came
Mhm,
through.
mhm.
Yeah.
Because they were forced to, upgrade, so.
All right.
So a minute ago, you were talking about increasing, I think, assessments 3 to 5% for single-family homes.
Yeah, that's a general
That's
overall.
overall.
Average, whatever.
Yeah.
Now, wouldn't that translate, pardon my naivete, but wouldn't that translate into potentially 3 to 5% increased income for the town without increasing rates technically?
It depends on what the overall town budget's gonna be. So, if your town budget's gonna go up more than that, then you're gonna see a tax rate increase.
Sure.
If we're staying about the same, then you have the potential of us having another year with the tax rate coming down.
Okay, that's pretty much what I want to add.
Yep.
That's,
But if you're looking at tax rate as to what's going to happen, forecasting it, if there is an overlay that's voted at town meeting for, not an overlay, a debt exclusion for the Minuteman project, then that's going to add to the tax rate significantly. Yeah. And any other
Sure.
capital expenditure, right?
Or El Nino,
sure.
or the stock market going to 7,900. It's so hard to figure out what's gonna happen.
Yeah, but the thing is, just because valuations go up, it doesn't necessarily immediately translate into more money.
Money, right.
It really, what that will translate is potentially a lower tax rate, assuming we don't.
Everything stays
If
the
everything stays the same, it's a
Right.
lower tax rate.
Right.
Well, it's not, but it doesn't mean anything to the individual taxpayer. They still have to pay, we still have to come
Sure,
up
at
with
the
money.
end of the day, I mean,
Yeah.
Their bill still goes up a bit
Right.
every year.
Right.
I'm
Yeah.
looking at the people in town meeting saying we're number 7 or something this year for tax rate.
But that's really immaterial.
I know it's
Yeah,
immaterial, but I
it's
still
immaterial.
have.
A tax rate could be $11 per
I
thousand.
totally understand,
Yeah.
but
Well, they have to,
At the
they
same
need to
time-
keep beating that home, that tax rate is a manufactured number.
I totally understand, but it's still,
And we're,
I don't know.
People tend to focus on it, but.
It's an easy number to focus on.
Right.
But I mean, if you guys assess every house for 10 times more, then our tax rate would be a tenth of what it is.
Yeah,
Our tax bills would be,
The same.
Be the same,
Yeah.
which is really all that,
That's
that's
right.
ultimately
That's
what
right.
matters, but,
yeah.
Yeah, that's all that has to be explained,
yeah.
is, remember, look, open up that envelope? Yeah, that's the number.
Right, that number is gonna be the
It
same
is what it
regardless
is.
of the rate, yeah.
It's not changing.
I appreciate the 160,000 prediction, but it sounds, I mean, I don't know the numbers like you, but I would think 3 to 5% on our housing base would eclipse that 160,000.
Well, that doesn't count as growth.
Okay.
Yeah,
Sure.
so a valuation increases in growth. Growth can only be additions to the tax bases in the way of additions to the home, new construction,
Yep.
permits.
anything permit related. Yeah.
Brad's new addition.
And swimming pool.
Yeah, you know, I actually, come to think of it, I actually did my part. I put on solar panels on my house.
That doesn't count.
Those aren't taxes. Yeah.
Sorry.
Yeah.
We're working on that.
Yeah, I bet you guys are.
It's
We'll
in-
do your
it's
house.
in the-
That
Yeah, I know. We know where to go. Cody first on the list.
Absolutely.
That was a permit,
Yeah,
right? Keep it up.
I'm trying. I'm trying to do my part.
Your favorite term, you've never different.
All right.
Good one. That's funny. That's very good.
And then looking, you know, you guys have any other questions on that?
Before you proceed, Brad, I
Yes.
have a glimmer of hope for you.
Oh, okay.
From our overlay account, 2012. The board has voted back, and believe me, this is not a major sum, but at least it's something for you. $60,000 from the overlay.
Oh, 2011.
No, 2012.
212.
212.
12, yes.
Am I on the wrong one?
Yeah.
I guess I am. Never mind.
I've asked Cynthia, that was just voted tonight, I've asked Cynthia to probably have the paperwork so that you should, it'll be official
Okay.
shortly.
Well-
Again, board signs a memo to the
Yeah.
notice.
Then Oshkosh's got to see it
Well,
first.
I mean, I think you came in last year and you're all excited to like, it was in the neighborhood of 5,000 or 6,000.
Yeah, I know,
I mean, this
we
is
tried to do our part. but-
significantly better than when you came in. You were all trying to jump up and down to cheer.
And I was actually trying to finagle and do something a little legal to help you last year, but it didn't. So, just be as it may, we will be returning 60,000.
Well, that'll help. Absolutely.
Very good.
All right.
Just so, to frame it for everyone, the board has returned all monies from 2009 and backward. So what's left to look at is 10, 10 and up through 16, and obviously you don't return anything to recent because there's many outstanding real estate taxes. There's ATV cases for 10 and 11, some major ATV cases, Verizon New England, so the money needs, in those separate years, needs to
Could
remain.
you explain ATV?
Appellate Tax Board.
So it's in contention, they filed an abatement, we denied it, and now it's before the,
Right.
they right to appeal,
We have to go to court, in other words.
unless they go away,
You
which they
don't want
won't.
them to go to ATV, it costs.
So it's a progressive board, they're returning monies as soon as the evaluation is done, that there's no outstanding appellate tax board cases and not a huge amount of outstanding real estate taxes. So 2012, all the remaining funds there will be returned, except for a small pocket to cover outstanding real estate.
Okay.
That's all we have.
All right. Yeah, and looking through the actual budget, so you guys are at 141. And again, could you just refresh my memory on purchase of services, what you folks,
So
some examples of,
we'll just pull that out, yeah. Cynthia, you do that?
Yeah, I got that.
Thank you.
So purchase of services requested this year for 1773.9. That includes the automatic little bit under 3% increase for the contractual RRG, David Manzello, Paral Chai, the regional assessor, who handles all the commercial and everything. So that's the typical, a little bit under 3% for them is included in the 73.9. Also included in that is some basic things like our copier contracts, public notices in the paper. Also included in that is the $5,000 that the board holds in remaindership for specialty appraisals. They need to go out for the Verizon New England ATV case I had stated for multiple years, 10 and 11. They may need to go out, remember the discussion, for expertise on depreciation schedules.
yes.
That's why that case is in court, because of course they're saying the depreciation schedules need to be more aggressive, we're not worth that much. So also we have a appraisal system, a mass appraisal system called CAMA, that all the valuations are done in our office, and that may in a few years reach end of life. It's a state supported, pretty much free product except for a few consortium fees for the year. The state manages it all. That may be coming at end of life possibly, so that $5,000 is still earmarked twofold, also to go out for maybe some formal reviews of alternative assessment appraisal systems. So we may have to do that in 17. Hopefully not, but
We as a board still go out and assess.
I know. I remember you
But
coming
if
up.
we lose the camera system and can't replace it, then we may have to go to a professional or somebody else to do the work, as we can't institute it as a program into our computer. Not that I expect to go there yet, I'm not trying to raise too much of a red flag, but that would be a worst case scenario down the road.
They're also proprietary vendors, which means we don't get to do the inspections.
That's what we're saying.
if we had to change.
Yeah.
Right now,
And
we
if you
have,
have to change,
And
then
they charge for going out to do this. We're,
we get paid a lot of money to do that, as you know.
we do.
Excuse me, that was supposed to be the joke.
Oh, that is a joke.
Everybody else does that.
But that prospect is really scary, and what we would have to do is, the problem is for the CAMA system, the support for it, sort of, just the whole system is sort of is limping along right now, and may or may not survive.
It's got duct tape on.
So,
The state is just convoluting, not funding it.
We have the new regime at the top, and so it's not a moneymaker for the state. The state has always provided an assessment valuation system, especially for the towns west of 495, cities and towns in Western Mass that don't have any money to speak of. So they would subsidize, and they created this assessment system. It's not proprietary. We can go in and tweak land tables and depreciation tables. We drive it, we own it, we can change all the master schedules in it, and it's, you know, we have full transparent access to it. So right now at the state, they're debating back and forth, well, should we spin it off, should we let it die? Then they get a lot of rally and support from people who still want it in the cities and towns who can't afford, not here, but in Western Mass, something else. And would be a hardship here too. And so then they come out with a memo, well, we are supporting it at least for the next year, maybe two. Oh, it has ours. So it's vacillating back and forth. So we'll have to...
But you're also saying, if you folks were to proactively say, you know what, forget the state, we're gonna go find a service on our own.
Private
Only if we have
company.
to.
Yeah, only for...
If you went that route, then they own it, and also you guys are done going around.
We're out of business, except we're not out of business as a board. You'll be happy to
Yeah,
see it.
absolutely.
But as far as doing the visits, we go through about 350 properties a year, the three of us on the road. Every house has to be inspected once every 9 years. And also, DOR requires a data system that is approved through the Department of Revenue. We can't just make one up.
Yeah.
So that's the crunch. Not to make you nuts, but we're trying to be as conservative as we can, but reserve funds in case we do have to go on that search.
All right. Guys, you have any other questions? All right. Well, thank you for doing what you
The
do.
rest of the budget is pretty self-explanatory.
Exactly.
I didn't know if you wanted to.
Did we speak assessor?
So that was some feedback for me, because I saw Charlotte in the special town meeting, and we confirmed with one another that we were going to be meeting this evening, and I said, you guys are going to come in, you're going to talk assessor, I won't know what you're saying, and then you'll just get up and leave. And so, no, it was somewhat understanding.
That's fabulous.
Yeah, so that, it probably says I should probably leave, because
Well, no, you may be getting...
fourth or fifth year, I'm starting to somewhat understand this.
You may be learning to speak assessor.
That's
your next...
That's your next position.
yeah.
Assessor.
I'll settle that. That's good, all right. Well, if there's no other questions, thank you for coming in.
Thank you very much. Appreciate you.
Thank you for being here. And I'm glad to see you have Ken. And I'm glad,
Full board.
Ken, that they have you.
All right, then we've got 179 Agriculture Commission. Is that you folks? Hello?
Yes,
How are you?
just fine, how are you?
Brad?
I'm Jan Johnson.
Hi, Jen, nice to meet you.
Joe Myers. Hi. I'm Connie. I'm Benjamin. And this is Teresa Sauer and Gentry Farrell. We have,
Just apologize in advance, I'm on call for my job, so.
All right.
so, we're all pretty new at this, so maybe you can tell us what we should be saying or doing.
Well, so yeah, this is the advisory board, and you folks are listed in this overall budget.
Right.
and you're at line 179, Agriculture Commission, you have one category called miscellaneous. And what I'm seeing here, you folks have a request for this upcoming fiscal FY17 for $1,746. And, which is similar to what you had last year. And it is the actual number that you guys spent in 15. And so what it looks as though what you're providing us is an understanding of how you all came up with that 1745.
So the AgCom has totally changed people, and none of the paperwork was pretty much passed along.
Yeah.
So we had to go back to accounting and find out what money was spent on and where our money needed to go, and so we sort of just did a breakdown of where we're thinking the money needs to go, and the budget's been the same for years and years, so we're hoping that it's not going to change.
We're going along with 4 members for a while, and it was we only met a few times a year for the 2015-16.
Yeah.
And we got down to kind of 0 members or very few, and kind of rallied some new people, and we've got some new energy and some new ideas. And
Okay.
wonderful. This is
Great.
How many farms are left in the town of Bolton?
what we don't know.
But we know there's 6 big orchards,
Right.
for sure. And it depends on how you want to define a farm, but there's quite a number of animals in town, and more all the time, so.
Yeah.
And a lot of gardening that goes on,
A lot of
and
backyard gardening.
community garden, and
Yeah.
so all kind of agricultural practices.
We had some discussion about that, about what constitutes a farm, and it seems that, Bolton is pretty indicative of Massachusetts, that in Massachusetts, we're beginning to realize that we want to be more sustainable.
Right.
In New England, we're having right now import almost all our food, and as we go into the future, we want to be having more of our own food. But however, Massachusetts is already pretty well carved up, and there are no more 100-acre or 1,000-acre tracts to just pick up and start farming on. Things are small, and the future, I think, of farming in Massachusetts is going to be small farms and on acres, a few acres, or backyards. So that's what we have here.
And I would just add to that a lot of the way that they define farms in a lot of the context tends to be based on like money, how much they make and things like that. But the laws, the people who are making less than the various thresholds, depending on how you calculate it, they either have low acreage or they're making less money if they're making money at all. Like the laws, like in terms of the animal control and all that, still apply to them regardless of what end of the spectrum they're on.
So we have plans, we'd like to do a farmer-to-farmer event and kind of get a better feel, let people get a better feel for who's here.
Yeah, so explain a little bit more about that.
So historically, the AgCom has rented a big tent at the fair, and allowed any farmer to come in and use it, so that it negates their fee for being part of the farmer's market at the Bolton Fair. That's been done for years. The farmer-farmer event was also something we picked back up on. So farmers can meet each other and spend a night talking about farming and about things that are going on and things that need to happen.
I think we need that too, so that we have a better idea of what farmers in town want and what they're looking for.
And think and need. And then the website maintenance, the Agriculture Commission paid for and built a website years ago, and it hasn't been maintained. Everybody's just been paying the hosting fee and domain fee. So we'd like to actually re-get that going so that it can be used for communicating among farmers. The road signs is something AgCom has been investing in for years. Some of them need to be replaced at this point. They're fading, so we're investigating a different company and a different way to make them so that they are more long-lasting and don't fade and look nicer longer. Within the AgComs, ours is kind of famous. People have stolen it, and sort of twisted it just a little bit. Everybody loves it.
And
It's
actually
been
called
great.
from other towns in the state to say, we're sure that
Where's
you
the
get
next one?
signs, yeah.
Brochure and outreach. We've inherited a general brochure about farming. The farming map needs to get updated. And we're also creating a general fencing and livestock keeping one to sort of mitigate some of the more recent issues.
Like a fencing 101 class?
Basically. So we're creating that now. And then the conference attendance, we joined the Mass State Agricultural Commission, MAAC, Mass Association of Agricultural Commissions. And so there's no joining fee, but there was a fee to attend the conference, which we just had. So.
Any questions, guys?
Any advantage to using the town's website as, the hitchhike on that rather than have your own? Or maybe that's what you're talking about.
They already created the website years ago. We've just been keeping the hosting and the domain. I think the prior AgCom figured it couldn't be done what they wanted to get out there to the public. They wanted to be able to maintain it themselves. And so,
I was just thinking maybe for access. I mean, a lot of town things are under the umbrella of the Town of Bolton website, and it may give you more traffic too. I don't know.
There's a link to the AgCom site.
When you do searches for relevant stuff like farms in Bolton, our actual website comes up first, which is actually really good, especially in terms of like local businesses and farms that want to show up. If you're like, oh, I want to go apple picking in Bolton.
But I did see though that, now that you say that, Sterling applied for a cultural council grant to do a website for agriculture. So we haven't even had a meeting for me to tell everybody that. So yeah, we are kind of exploring other options for.
We're a big fan of grants.
Yeah, we like grants.
Yeah. Okay. Any other questions?
So we'll consider grants,
Always.
Yes.
and you can help us with finding
No.
which way to go. I don't know.
No disrespect to you. I don't know the first thing about grants other than you're successful, it doesn't cost the town money. So,
It doesn't hurt I sit on the cultural council.
You should talk to Don Lowe about that. Yeah.
People in the AAC and also institutions.
all right.
Okay.
Thanks.
So,
Thank you.
Awesome, thank you.
Have a nice evening.
You too.
Excuse me? I was gonna do it all day.
We'll go around the assessors.
Yeah.
Yeah, so we might as well do it all together.
Capital planning. How are you guys? Hello.
Great. Guys.
Look at this. Everyone has a copy of the 5 here. It was in the packet that I handed out tonight.
I should pull it up.
Oh, jeez.
I couldn't take a Percocet.
Do you need it?
I know, I'm all right. I had surgery, I just don't take pop pills.
Yeah, it's in the back of this packet that I handed out.
Yeah.
All right. And then, let's see here.
Truly.
I know.
The one from a few years ago. Wish I bought it. Compare.
So then, and then on the back is the ranking of what you guys looked at for this year. Right. And does everyone still have, I was looking at a package that Linda gave us a week ago or so, just specifically on DPW.
This guy.
Yeah. So where do you guys want to start?
If you just want to go through the rankings, does that work best, or do you want to talk about?
Yeah, go through the rankings, and then as you're going through, give a little explanation, what you're thinking, how you came about the ranking, and then what else, what other considerations and what do we have to, I guess, look forward to a little bit in the coming years?
Yeah.
Other than, although we're just focused on this year, but.
Sure. I mean, I think, so the top two were, as in years past, were culverts that are failing and need to be replaced. The two that we're looking at for this year, Berlin and Wilder, those have both been on the list, I think, years past. So these have been identified and...
Yeah, Berlin's been on for a while, because I think last year we approved money for engineering.
Yep.
If I remember correctly.
Yep, so the estimates should be fairly accurate for both of those. As usual, culverts, safety and liability issues, so we tend to rank those higher. I don't have my list. So town hall repairs. So this is another one that's it's been on the list for years now with not a real dollar figure.
Yeah,
tied to
it was on the list when I was on capital.
Yeah, it was at 20 grand, 40 grand, 60 grand for years, and this is the first time that it sounds like they've gotten a real estimate on the work to be done.
And that's a healthy number.
It's a large number. I guess the first issue is to say, does the work need to be done? And the columns definitely are rotting. You can go out there and you can stick your finger through them. The cost, I mean, so we think this is a single estimate that it got from this. But I don't know how many companies you can really find out there that do work on a historical building like this with columns like that, so I would assume that the price may be somewhat accurate.
Yeah, because you know what's interesting is it's always been referred to as columns. And I think I remember I saw a number somewhere around 60,000. And again, this would be going back easily 6 years.
Yeah.
And I'm thinking, wow, that's a healthy number for replacing 3 columns, right? But there's clearly an understanding of a lot more that's going on here.
Yeah. So definitely foundation work that needs to happen. I think that's the crux of the problem, is the foundation sunk low and the posts or the columns pulled away from the building. Now there's other stuff in this and not just the column work. So I mean, if we wanted to address only the safety issues of it and replacing the columns, there was work for guardrails, there was fascia board on the top that's rotted out.
Harold provided pictures.
Yeah.
So basically the front porch, the front steps, it's floating. So as frost builds up, you're getting the up and down movement. So that's the foundation issue. So then the roof ties into that. So the roof is going up and down and coming away from the building.
How does that affect the columns?
Well, the columns are structural. Right. So the columns are what's holding the front part up.
So it doesn't affect the columns, other than the columns that rotted.
Affect that? Because I would maybe say fix one thing and then...
Well, clearly they've got to fix the foundation.
Yeah, the foundation and the columns are the same.
Sends the columns up and then the...
That's my...
Yeah.
There was additional work as part of this that was saying, like, repointing of some of the bricks of the building. The fire escape stairs need to be repaired, handrails need to be replaced. Stringers need reinforcing, so part of the steps.
It's all exterior work. We got the feeling it was all relatively connected. He didn't really separate the costs between that which is structural and very important to do now versus some of the other stuff, but we get the feeling that the lion's share was these structural columns.
Yeah, that's...
And it was quoted as one package.
Yeah. Mark, you had a question?
There were some, I think if you look in the draft warrant, there's some more details on that particular.
Yes.
Because it does involve brickwork and there's a whole list of things that were in there.
So are you referring this as the draft form? Because this is all that we have. This is what we received from Harold a couple weeks ago.
Yeah, no,
so maybe you guys might just have the draft warrant.
Could be.
Yeah, we haven't seen the draft form.
Yeah, is that cost still accurate in the draft? 325?
325, yeah, but it was in there.
There's not a lot,
Was there?
there's not a lot, no.
Okay, I thought there was a little more in there, but okay.
But I think if that is the case, and I would agree that it would probably be the lion's share out there, but I don't think it would be accurate to, have an article that says town hall columns. I know this, what I'm looking here from you guys, it's town hall repairs.
Yeah.
So I think we just need to make sure the warrant accurately reflects what potentially might be done, right? Because if someone is solely focused, which is what I was thinking of, even though I'm reading repairs, I know in my head of the columns and I'm looking at the situation out there, but if that 325 also represents other stuff, we should make sure it's clearly delineated for that.
What's in the warrant is solely speaking about out front.
Okay.
Now, that may be just some summary stuff, and maybe some more detail, but currently what's in the warrant only is discussing that for 3 1/4.
Is there a full scope of work, or is it sort of developing? I mean, does it exist somewhere?
Did one of it in his sheet address just this, give more detail?
Because the scope of work and the dollars kind of have to...
Well, yes, and that's a good point. So the quote, the 325 quote included all of the work, including the handrails, repointing the bricks. So it was all included as one.
Yeah, I'd like to be able to read that. Outset scan is the columns?
At the moment, so again, this is just the first cut of the actual.
So, I mean, the major question is how critical is this to get it done now?
Yeah.
There are structural safety issues. Whoever they got the estimate from clearly thought it was a priority. Harold thought it was a priority. So we can only kind of go by.
Sure.
That's true, it does.
By his feeling on that.
Yeah, and it's a function of the scope of work that gets put in front of you guys, right? I mean, it's the board's responsibility to figure out, each department to figure out what they feel they need to do. They dump that all in front of you, and then you guys sit and rank, regardless of, what potentially type of money the town might have to be able to fund these. And, I mean, I would say, again, seeing what I see out there and just knowing how long, Harold has had this on the list, and but again, it was a much smaller number, and he always found a way to throw it off. I'll worry about it next year because this is more pressing, and so that is consistently happening.
Yeah.
All right.
Yeah, I stand corrected. It does talk about backstairs and brick painting and the foundation, so it does mention it. So,
so number 4 was the public safety building repairs. So I think we included this because it sounded like, it was causing water infiltration issues, and it's better to do a small fix now than a large fix down the road.
Is this a parking lot one, or is this the front of the building?
It's the back of the building.
Is it the side of the building where the generator is?
Is it back parking?
Is it the generator, the pad that the generator sits on that's next to the building on the back right side of it?
No, I think it was talking about where the pads for the storage tanks are too low, so they're collecting water, which is getting into all of the alarm systems there.
Right.
Some of the walkways coming in are higher than the actual entryway, so we're funneling water into the building there. Just some silly
Were
little...
you guys just uncertain, or were you aware, and there's actually 4 different problems with a brand new project? Were you guys just uncertain on what was being, because each of you mentioned a different area of the building.
That was my question.
4 different problems with a brand new building?
Or 2 different problems?
There are a number of problems, and it's a result of one contractor's work.
So I actually asked Mr. Brown about it after the meeting last week, or 2 weeks ago, whatever it was. And it sounds like at least some of these problems were understood and called out at the walkthrough before we accepted the building. And
Sort of like a punch list?
yes, exactly like a punch list. And I asked who was supposed to be dealing with that, and I guess it was the building committee who was supposed to get back and get that all fixed up before we signed off. I guess it's water under the bridge now, but.
Water.
Literally.
All right.
Yeah,
So,
water under the door sill.
The feeling that I think we got from this was that this was not the tip of the iceberg, but as this money would allow him to fix this one problem and then identify if there's other issues beyond that.
yeah.
Once they started digging it up and getting into it.
No, it's just so unfortunate, right? We just finished talking about columns that have, how long have they been there
Yeah.
and how long have they been deferred? Now we're entertaining repairs on a relatively new building,
Yeah.
as far as I'm concerned.
But I am unclear of the scope of the work because they mentioned these pads with the fuel oil, and I assume that was something over in the parking lot area. But then they talk about the walkways towards the building, so that sounds like a separate issue.
Yeah.
Both cases have water infiltration problems, but they're two separate issues.
So that was the former that was the focus of his 31 grand now, and the latter, the walkway being above, the water pitching in and potentially causing mold being hey, look, there's a couple of things going on here, and when we start digging around, we're gonna find other stuff.
So that was I guess that's the question then, is this covering both of those things? And he does, in his justification, in his original, in the capital form, prevention of black mold getting into the sheetrock of the public safety building, so this has to be close to the building.
It's described on the second page of the pile of article requests. I don't know that it's actually listed in the details for the rest of the page.
I mean, in any case, regardless, we're in favor of it,
Yeah.
pay the money now rather than face a bigger problem later on.
Yeah, there's a description.
Thanks.
There's somewhere on the bottom there. Is what we have so far. It looks like there are several problems and all covered by that 31K.
Yeah.
Yes.
Okay.
Same as what we said.
Yep, okay.
So it's the pad over the fuel tanks, the pad where where they should do where they park to refuel.
Yep.
And there's, and the sidewalks going into the building aren't pitched quite right, so you have water infiltrating there, so, or at least piling up there, so.
Okay.
But it sounds like, I mean, the number 31 there is to cover all that work, so
Yeah.
that would line up with the whole.
Okay, number 5, F-550 crew cab, 104,000. So these are kind of the workhorse trucks of the DPW.
He budgeted for,
Plowing as well as.
It is used, yeah, it's not the sander, but it is used for plowing.
yeah, he had budgeted for 2 trucks in 17. I believe a F-350 and another 4-wheel drive vehicle. That would have totaled around 140,000. And he, I think he's backing that off and requesting this F-550 that is more of a well-built truck, he would say, compared to the F-350, and he'll be able to get more out of it than getting the 2 trucks.
Then the crew cab that has it's the 4-door. So I guess one question I have is, and again, I hesitate to ask these questions in light of the library accusing me of micromanaging, but I guess I will anyways. Every time I see a town truck, I generally see 2 people in it. I don't often see 4. So I guess I'm just wondering why a 4-door and why not, I agree, clearly a 550 is a lot heavier duty than a 350.
Yeah.
So I won't, so anyways, it's just
I don't
something
know,
that...
does 550 come into 2, or I honestly don't know the answer to that.
I don't know if it does. I can't, having a pickup truck and knowing the difference between the cost of the quad cab and the regular cab, it's not draconian. The difference in cost between a one-ton, a 350 and a 550 is more substantial.
100 large.
What's that?
100 large for a single truck, it seems.
I mean, that's spec'd out with
Yeah.
equipment.
But
I'm sure it has-
they may be putting us
There's
a body
plow
on
and
it,
stuff,
a
yeah,
body
yeah,
on it, and
sure.
a plow and a few other things, so that's what
Lights.
jacks the price up.
Yeah.
But again, that's kind of the workhorse year-round truck that they use.
Yeah.
Is
that off a state bid, do we know?
It is. No state bid contract.
So is it possible then to know what the specs are for the 104 that they talked about? I mean, can we get it from?
We didn't receive it, but I'm sure, yeah. This is a little bit of a
I think it would be a
segue.
good idea if we had
When we were
a
in,
spec sheet for it.
at the beginning of the season, talking to you guys, conversation came up, it was a pretty big topic of conversation. You know, you should talk to DPW about the plans, the philosophy with respect to own or lease or sub out, start to minimize the size of the fleet.
Yeah.
So we brought it up, we had a good conversation with Harold, who indicated that, A, he was wholeheartedly supportive of the proposition of presenting the research, and he effectively has his mind made up that, yes, that's a good way to go, to start to reduce the fleet. He likes everything about outsourcing certain aspects of the business, especially we're talking about winter conditions, so snow plowing and sanding. And yeah, there's still some stuff that he'll do in-house with his own guys, but seems very supportive of the concept. He says he did the research for the town a number of years ago, and it didn't really seem to go anywhere. And I pressed that, you know, there seems to be a serious willingness to hear it again, so we'd like to help you do the research. And he seems to be all into using the next 12 months to do a deep dive, do a real analysis, and when we come back this time next year, present something that's meaningful to say, you know, on a unit-by-unit basis, or a snowstorm by snowstorm, or a winter by winter. This is the delta as between.
Yeah,
he already has done some of that.
Even the
already.
initial that you guys provided to us, you know, it was interesting to see those numbers.
Sure.
And I know, you know, going into this budget season, there was, and Harold provided us, you know, numbers on a backhoe, you know, leasing the backhoe, purchasing the backhoe, and I heard, you know, coming into this budget season that it was needed. And so if I remember correctly, I either heard from one of you guys or Harold that he's gonna basically rent one out over the course of this next, to get a sense of usage.
It's a perfect opportunity, because it's one piece of equipment let's get some empirical evidence over 12 months. Again, he seems philosophically, wholeheartedly into the concept, but let's try and quantify it.
And it's mainly because this is a piece of equipment that is not used every day.
We can jump to that one right now. So that's the tractor backhoe at 157,000 that we put into effectively a non-approved list. So, you know, we talked a lot about this. This equipment has one purpose, and that's to clear out the drains in town. That's the only thing that they use this for. It's not like it's something they use down at the transfer station.
No, this was a nice clean cut case where add it to my op expense budget and let me see if I can work it that way. But he seems pretty convinced that that's the way to go.
So he was willing to sub out those drain cleaning jobs for the year. However many times we do that, twice a year, I'm not even sure. And then keep a record of how much that costs us. And then we can figure out, you know, a year from now, we'll look, how much did we spend on paying some external company to do this? Is it worth, like, you know, if it comes back at 20 grand or something crazy like that, obviously, then we'd say, well,
every year.
yeah, that gets expensive. I mean, this was something from 1986. If you push that out for $157,000, a pretty good deal.
Yeah, clearly the right decision to buy. Sure.
But it would be good to understand the data of how much we're really spending on that. 'Cause I mean, $157,000 is a lot of money, especially in this year where we've got some other big ticket items.
Yeah, and you know, no daylight really in the foreseeable future, so we'll be having the same conversation next year.
So on the snow equipment specifically, we kind of looked at this as a year where he's not looking for any new snowplow equipment. It's kind of the perfect year to say, we're not buying any new snowplow equipment. Let's work over the next 12 months and put together an analysis and kind of make a decision next year. Be armed with a little nice empirical evidence. So it kind of worked out pretty well. But he's up to the task. I'm raising my hand to kind of help him out and coordinate some numbers and take a look and digest. So meaningful conversation this time next year, I think, on that topic.
Yeah, so let's finish up here and we'll circle back to that. Sure. Because I think you have some more thoughts on it. So the F550 recommend, so next one is the 110, 117 lights.
Yeah.
So this one, just from, I know my own personal feeling, like I want to see that intersection fixed properly. And if we're spending money to replace the lights, this is the right time to do it the right way, change the turning lanes in it so it's left turn lanes only. That's the most dangerous intersection in Bolton. I think it's the highest crash intersection we have, so we definitely are in favor of kicking in the extra money to do that right.
So, you may have heard from the Board of Selectmen or whatever, I was at the meeting the last meeting. Apparently, Mr. Brown and all has come up with replacement lights, LED-based, cameras looking both ways, controller and all, $27,600 approved by DOT, plus installation costs. So now you're looking at, well, it's looking like $400,000 or $27,600. So I think that changes your thoughts. I don't know, it's up to you, but.
How did
So this would be replacement electronics for what's there.
Oh, for the existing
For
light.
the existing light,
Right.
for the existing structures. It would be replacement timers and such. We'd be adding in some cameras onto 110, so it's a little more demand-based instead of just a straight timer.
Right.
And
Putting LED.
replacing the existing bulbs with LED bulbs,
LEDs.
so we'd cut the energy cost slightly. It would not realign the turn lanes, it would not address any of the other issues at the intersection.
Sure.
So I'm just, just laying it out for everybody, I'm just,
Yeah.
you know.
And that's
so-
what? That's 27
So that's
total, or
27,
That's for the
so,
hardware.
okay, so that's 27.6 for a used cabinet with a 2-year warranty,
Yep.
plus installation, or
That includes installation?
that, I don't think so. It was it was a couple days for installation.
We probably need an engineer to look at that. Have them charge a fee.
Not clear.
No,
it's
This is replacement of the controller and replacement primarily the bulbs, so there's no structural change.
And DOT would view it as a maintenance upgrade, not as a redesign, so we wouldn't have to come up to current specs on everything.
What's the amount approved now? I mean,
Yeah,
So last year we approved borrowing of $250 and $20K for engineering,
Right.
roughly. I guess,
Exactly.
there may be
That was right.
a few hundred here or there, but, and to finish the project, to finish that out, we'd be looking at
It's about 400 grand now.
roughly 400 grand total, so I think so it was, the actual light hardware was about right at 250. The engineering needs to go up, and I forget the exact number, but they also, as part of doing that, they want to realign the lanes and redo some of the paving to improve the turn lanes and signaling for the turn lanes. And
So it's 400 as a total fix, or
400 as a,
as an upgrade?
As a basically, what we're talking about is a stopgap.
yeah, yeah.
Okay.
So that just kind of, that's for the, and the selectmen have not voted one way or another on which way we want to pursue it. There is an article on the draft warrant right now for the additional borrowing.
So it would be an additional 150 from last year, is that what the article does?
Roughly, yeah. Actually, I think it's, well, I mean, Don needs to work out the wording on it, whether it's an additional 150 or whether it's 400, and then we turned back the 250 from last year, but.
Same difference.
For mere mortals, yeah, but for
Yeah.
the bonding people and stuff, it's,
Because we haven't actually done anything with that.
yeah, we haven't spent any of that money yet, so,
Does Harold have a recommendation? Is it one versus the other?
You wanted to get the lanes in, he said he'd do it in one shot.
Well, but that was before he had found this solution. So yeah, so 27K total fix versus a 400.
well, it's not 27, it's not twice, it's
Yeah,
not 26.
yes, that's what I'm saying.
But did he have any recommendations for you guys?
I think he just presented the various options. I don't think we've gotten into the recommendation piece because to do the whole thing really would follow with what the 117 traffic study folks were recommending about the realignment and whatnot.
It would create a safer intersection to do the whole.
Right, and well, right, safer, and also put in a turn signal and whatnot, so you can't do that with the existing equipment, so there would be no point in doing the upgrade to the road itself. But I mean, the 27.5 plus whatever extra for installing really is more of a stopgap, just so you get some equipment in there that functions, because it is, you can't fix what's there, you know.
Do you guys, do you lean in one way or the other, or are you still noodling it?
We are noodling it, but I mean, obviously, you know, the attractiveness of not spending the 400K, given the items that you guys just talked about, plus there's a couple here that I don't even see on the list, on your list, for this year, which might just give us some breathing room for a bit. But I think eventually it will need to be done. Because once you get past maintenance mode, the state's gonna say, well, you know, you can't keep fixing it, you gotta go the whole Monty.
But they are for sure saying that this is okay to do.
They would consider it as a maintenance action,
Yeah.
so it wouldn't require all the structural changes and, you know, all the new equipment, so we could get away with it.
Well, fiscal 18 is panning out to be about 45% of fiscal 17. So.
Yeah, but a year ago, where were you saying this year was gonna be your spec, you know?
That's usually how it works.
Yeah, we always, think next year's gonna be better than the year, man.
Coming in under budget.
We've got to do this one of these days, so it's a deadly.
It's a terrible intersection. It really is a terrible intersection. And I was on the 117 committee, I mean, it's a horrible intersection.
Yeah, so that's, I mean, that's also, I mean, not spending 400, only spending the 27 instead of 400, for my wallet sounds really good, but there's the safety aspects and such that.
And we'll still end up getting to that point probably of having to do more.
Yeah, I mean, we may just be kicking the can down 5 or 10 years.
Stop, yeah.
but-
Well, so what,
Yeah.
I mean, the fact that we've been, you know, the town, you know, voted on money last year, and, you know, it's documented, we're deciding what to do. I mean, liability-wise, Tom, maybe a question for you. I mean, is the town exposed now? Like hypothetically, right? I like the 27 idea as well, but we move forward on that and something happens.
Well, remember, you gotta remember though.
We originally planned for
the article last year was there if, you know, if for whatever reason something happened with the state, and obviously the state walked away because of a number of factors, including the lawsuit. So at the time, the state was recommending replacement of that. You know, obviously there may have been other stuff relative to fixing it and revamping it, but the 270 was there just as a means to replace the equipment, which is what the state was looking for. We weren't really anticipating turn signals and.
Wasn't gonna be lane change.
We weren't anticipating a lot. We were focused on, we have to replace the equipment, because that's what the state was recommending. So that was the main goal, because of the electronics and whatnot. So this 27.6 plus installation option kind of sort of preserves that goal. It just does it in a much more efficient fashion. It obviously doesn't alleviate the safety stuff, but that wasn't the focus of the article.
And the DOT is going to sign off and say it's okay. I think liability-wise, that's what we would rely on too.
Right, and the other thing you have to think about is that there are other things that are being contemplated for 117 as well. There are, they want to do crosswalks and something's going to have to be done at the intersection of Main and Aquatic. And that's a far more significant cost factor. And the thing is, the committee recommended one thing, but that doesn't necessarily mean that the state's going to go along with it. The state wanted to put in the turn signal, the turn lane and a traffic light. Not this crosswalk thing where people push a button and walk across. And so, it's almost irrelevant what the committee wants to do or not do. It all depends on what the state says, okay, we either agree with that or we don't agree with that. But there are other projects there. It's one of these, it's a dangerous intersection and we need to do something, but, do we want to spend $400K versus $27,600 now to buy us some time? Eventually we're going to have to do something with it. But considering we've got this whole laundry list of stuff that we...
I thought the last fix, because I can recall when there was a lot of fatalities there, it was like probably years in between, but it was routine of bad accidents and fatalities. But I thought that last fix quieted that down. Has there been a bad accident there recently, or?
It's a good question.
Yeah, I don't...
I don't think, the only fix I think that was done was they changed some of the timing, which sort of made it a bit more difficult for people, coming from Lancaster or going, basically east-west. They had to sit there and wait. Some people were finding some alternative routes.
And wasn't there some type of, I don't want to say generator, but wasn't there something also installed to help with a power, I thought they put in some type of battery down there as well.
I think so.
Like 4 or 5 years ago?
One of the issues, and actually it wasn't necessarily working well, but sometimes when the power goes out, the system reverts back to a blinking yellow, blinking red, and it's yellow on 117 and it's red on 110. And that's, I forget where I was coming back from. I was coming back from somewhere and I was headed east, and there was a power failure. I saw cop cars up on 110, and it was blinking yellow, blinking red, and there wasn't a lot of traffic, and people didn't know what the hell to do. They were panicking. You want to go west, what? So that alone. But I think there was something in there possibly to for power outages and whatnot to help mitigate that particular issue.
Well, yeah, I think we all are in agreement that, 27 sounds significantly better than 400. But, it's these types of decisions why we're also looking at this massive laundry list that we have tonight, because we're like, oh, screw it, let's deal with it later.
And I do think if you go with this 27K fix, then this doesn't get touched for another 10 years probably.
Who knows?
Space needs coming up, right?
Every time 117 comes up, it's always band-aided and deferred out another, so.
Well, yeah, and that's what it is. It is, everything on here, or the vast majority that we all see and have been seeing, the Band-Aid is officially off, and we are forced to move forward on a certain type of fix.
Now, is there anything else that was recommended by the 117 committee that's being considered for the town meeting?
No. No.
Okay,
not this time.
So one way to look at it, whether you like 27,000 or not, is that if you have nothing, then you basically, yet again, will have ignored the work of a committee and recommendations that it made and bring nothing forward.
I think we're waiting to hear back from DOT on their review of the report.
Exactly.
But it's still nothing that's going to be on this ATM, I think is your point.
Well, until we get feedback from the state, you can't put anything on there.
Would the 27.5 be an article or just being the budget?
I don't know.
And so we have some further discussions and probably talk to, whether we need to have Harold in or we, not sure that we decided what direction we want to go on it.
There's kind of
the other way to look at it, just to muddy the water some, is we've allocated 250 or 270 already, so is the improved safety with the relining the lanes and so forth 130?
Yeah,
more.
An extra 130 appropriation.
Sure.
Just different ways to slice that.
Well, and there's like an optics issue too, where it's like we went to town meeting last year, we said, okay, it's gonna cost 250, 270. And I remember like several people got up and was like, that's bullshit. There's no way it costs that much to replace lights. And then we come back and say, oh, guess what? It's really 400 grand. And now we're like, oh, just kidding, we can do it for that.
Yeah, suddenly the
No,
song.
it's not that we can do 270 for 27.6.
Yeah, it's apples and oranges.
It's a completely different.
It's not. You're like that article last year was to replace the lights.
But we're not replacing. We're not replacing the lights.
Well,
true.
my point is that
Extending
someone
the
from the
useful life.
town might say,
Oh, of course.
you're looking competent
Yeah,
for coming
understand
to
that
us.
this banter right here, that, you know, right?
Yeah.
I mean, it's, when you can't control the narrative.
Oh yeah. Same thing with the tax rate. Year after year after year.
Yeah. So,
But to correct your point, Ken, it's not that we haven't done anything. I mean, we spent 2 years working with the state
No, I don't.
to get them to basically do
I don't
everything.
mean that at all. I don't
Yeah,
mean that at
so-
all. I was not trying to be critical, I was simply just trying to put the work of the committee in the context of the whole town meeting process and all that.
Yes.
Yeah.
Well, right, nothing really can be done on that.
But
until
the
we
other
get
reason, I
feedback
guess
from
the other
state.
reason that I ask about the 27.6 being in an article is that what you could do is have whatever article you have be the vehicle that you use. So if in your discussions with Harold and with us, the decision is made to go with the 27.6, that becomes the article. But if the decision is made to go with a 400, then that becomes the article, and you just change the way it's worded. And as long as you do that before the end of this month, then...
Right, well, right now, the article is 400. That's what the article is right now.
Well, but that can be changed.
I understand, but that's what's in the warrant now.
All right, so you guys, there was one other category that you guys have down here that we haven't really talked about.
So the truck body sander, so this was a external body that holds the sand for one of their sanders that are used during the winter for plowing and sanding. So it's some notes here. Was this one that could be?
Yeah, before purchasing, the DPW should consider whether we should remove one sander from the road next
Yeah.
year and contract that work out. So, Dave,
This is speaking to the same thing.
And so
This is
the
soft
point
trial.
with this particular truck was that he would, the body that this sander body is on a truck that drives well. Now, he did say that he could possibly take, there's one truck he knows he would retire. There's one sander he would retire. That one has a good body on it. He could take the body off of that one and put it onto this one
Yeah.
with duct tape and paper clips or whatever else.
Bubble gum.
And so we put it into this category again for our conversation about, well, why spend this money if we're thinking about retiring a truck this year?
Okay. So based upon what you guys looked at, then if I hear what you're saying is we should really focus on the first 6 here, which is the culverts, town hall repairs, public safety building repairs, the F-550 crew cab, and then the 110, 117 lights.
Yes.
Right? Okay.
Sorry, just to throw out there real quick, so I guess police was asking for 2 cruises this year. Linda didn't give us that as a request this year, so we didn't have a chance to talk to him, but...
Yeah, it's baked, and that's
In their
it.
budget,
We always ask that you guys, take a look at that, but effectively, it's not a capital item, it's baked right into the budget, so.
Yeah.
How does that work? It's a lease and not a purchase?
No.
It's within the budget.
It's when they're operating.
The purchase
Yeah,
is just in
So
the
it's capital,
operating
but
budget.
it's within their operating budget.
Right.
Yeah.
We also didn't talk to ambulance because the 15K was below our threshold.
Right.
25K, I believe, is our threshold.
Yeah, and so that was for the
Chest
chest
Yeah,
compression
That's
automatic.
25K.
Yeah, all right.
That's why.
Okay.
It's okay, so now,
Fire truck.
you want to talk leasing, that sort of stuff? So-
Yeah, no, I think, I like the idea, I mean, just the little bit that you guys started putting together here, with the work that Harold had done, so he was looking at a number, 36,000 gross vehicle weight of a truck, leasing was, if I am reading this correctly, 6,000 a month, of 82,000 a year, so, those numbers versus buy, versus what he's been doing as of late, buying, nice, or as nice as can be, used equipment, and then this whole new dynamic of, subbing. I agree, if, the backhoe, I think, is a perfect example, right? I mean, someone was even mentioning, the fact that if there's a, the Lancaster, Bolton, and Stowe are tied in with one another, if those DPWs have a backhoe, right? So how often does a backhoe get used? So the game plan that you guys have in place, or what Harold has in place with the backhoe, sounds great, and as you guys do more work on that, that'd be helpful. I guess with the selectmen being here, I'll ask the question, assuming the way to go, or part of the analysis was to sub out the work, is everyone within that department union? We could get rid of someone in that department, but after they were to leave, the position might not necessarily be backfilled. Is that how it would potentially work?
In regards to what?
In regards to if the game plan was to, slim down the staff and have a more, subcontracted, group.
So the subbing, I think, that we talked really specifically about was the snow plowing. That's kind of what we focused on, because that was capital intensive equipment, right? 215 for a plow sander, which is coming up in FY19.
Yeah.
And then another one 2 years after that. So the point was to take those off the road, because those trucks only are on the road for, what, 3 months
Yeah, he has
out of the year?
4 sanders today, he said, and he would...
No, 6 sanders, I think he does, right?
Well, 4 trucks that he cannot use in the summer.
Okay.
And then he said his plan would be to get rid of 2 of those trucks.
Okay. So it's not getting rid of a person, it's the equipment.
Getting rid of that equipment, and then I don't know how it works during a snowstorm, who comes on and drives those trucks.
The contractors. It's entirely subbed out. So he's not getting...
I mean, like, to the question about, town employees, if we have 4 plows, I assume that means 4 town guys go out and drive those. Right, like, there isn't a contractor that comes in and drives out.
No.
We're not subcontracting out individuals to drive town trucks.
That's right.
Exactly.
No.
That's your question, I guess. No, it's a matter of his obviating the capital cost of 200 grand every couple of years for a piece of machinery that just deals with moving snow. And instead, picking up the phone, calling one of his numerous contractors that he speaks with at the very beginning of the season to do a job, whether that's a neighborhood or a road or what have you, and saying, you own this, you're using your equipment, you're using your guy, sometimes it's the owner of the owner-operator company itself, it's your health insurance, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. But we didn't really talk about reduction in his staff. As Mike said, this is a seasonal type of an operation.
Again, probably in the vein of starting slow. The snow made the most sense, because those are the most capital intensive trucks, and the fact that you can only use them for a few months out of the year,
Yeah.
I think makes those an obvious choice to to not invest in.
That's why when you look at the 550 that he's got on the list, he was very specific about that truck's ability to be used year-round. That's what it's for. It's not a purpose-built type of thing. It's used for landscaping, it's used for moving earth material, it's used year-round.
Yeah.
I think to your point, Brett, though, that I think depending on when the storm comes in, a lot of the labor for the town snow removal ends up as overtime. So even if we're have the same staff for the routine day-to-day operations, it means that now we're subcontracting out a lot of that overtime. Yeah. So that's that. So we may not reduce headcount, but we should be reducing the overtime line.
And he harped on that as being a big piece of the analysis and something, quite frankly, we need to jump into in the next 12 months. It's not just the cost of the piece of capital equipment, it's a lot of the fringe stuff. It's increased overtime, it's increased benefits, what have you. But there's a big ripple effect. And you made it sound like he did a lot of that ancillary analysis the first time around. So we'll dig it up and fresh up.
Yeah, I know that years ago, there was analysis, this was quite some years ago, still when I was on the board, and there was a rather different set of members. And there are, you have to be careful, you're trading one cost for others.
Absolutely.
And then it's better now because fuel costs are lower, but there was a big component of it was fuel costs and how they calculate those drivers get paid. It's not necessarily, okay, you fill up your truck and here's the receipt that you bought 10 gallons. It's a much more complicated calculation of how much fuel you have to pay for. And it was turning into a pretty big number.
Sorry, is this for the contracting it out?
Contracting it out.
No, so that one was a set number, it was a dollar value per storm that he agreed to, negotiated at the beginning of the year, as to what that cost, and it was whatever it was, $100 an hour.
Yeah, but there is, like I said, there is a calculation in that number. It's not just, gallons used. There's a formula, and I think it helps us, I think, now with gasoline being low, but years ago when gasoline was much higher, it was a higher impact.
So Stan, you're saying that it was you as the selectman who said no to this? Or
No, it was just...
You're to blame?
It was just analysis that was done. It was just analysis that was done.
Yeah. I'm just joking. You're the only two selectmen that would have been around, 100 years ago. And you're right in front of it. It's a perfect opportunity for me to check in and see what's going on.
So I suspect in the contract, so there is a clause if gas prices go up more than, above a certain amount, that there's extra.
Yeah, I mean, clearly there's enough evidence, by the state on how do they go about contracting, right? And so if the town was going down that road, there would be that type of analysis to figure out, what the contract would look like. All right.
And so he's about 50-50 on snowstorms. So in a typical snowstorm, there'd be 10 Bolton DPW and 10 outsourced trucks on the road.
That is what goes on right now.
Right now, yeah. So, I mean, we're already doing it to some extent. It's just a matter of pulling more, more of the Sanders off the road.
All right.
But we'll endeavor to put some numbers to it and create a little analytical case.
Yeah, no, I think it's all good stuff. So thank you for the time.
Yeah. Were there other articles that we...
No, you made the comment the threshold was 25K, so
Okay.
there were two that were under 25K, so that's...
All right. Okay, any questions?
All right, guys.
Thank you.
Stan, that was my question too. When you mentioned that, I was getting a little antsy, like...
Wait, there's more? Oh, there is. We just didn't talk about it.
What has happened in the past 2 weeks? Take care. Yeah, so one of them was that chest compression thing that Barb, you were talking about, so that was, right.
No, but there's still 22K for Long Hill Road culvert repair, and there's 19 change for the fire truck repairs.
Oh, yeah. All right. So any questions on what we've covered so far?
On what?
On what we've covered so far tonight on this point.
I guess I have some.
Sure.
How do I get information about all the background details? Is there a book somewhere? I mean, you guys all have hard copy details on things.
Yes.
I notice you don't have a secretary, so where does one go if one wants information from advisory?
Yeah.
And if somebody says, oh, we should get something, then whose job is it to get that something? That person's or what?
Yeah, so a lot of it gets funneled back through me, and then working with Linda. There's been certain instances where, other guys on the group have gone and gotten information or requested information. There's been an ask that, generally, as opposed to all 6 of us, going to the town accountant, that generally one of us does. But you're right, Ken, to the point of, just from these capital projects, there's 2 pieces that I know you don't have because we were given these when Harold was in just a couple weeks ago, so.
Right, well, it used to be that every department submitted a budget that had the breakdown of their thing, which is included in this, as well as backup information. And it's that backup information that I guess, if it still exists, that I'm interested in on.
Oh, exactly, so.
Particularly on the big departments at least. It's not so important on the little ones, but on the big departments, I'd like to.
Yeah, no, I will check in with Linda. I would have thought that with you coming in, I was, as you know, not here last week, but I was assuming that you were gonna be here and that there would be that whole initial budget package that we were all given for you tonight. So I will make sure that gets to you for next meeting.
So electronically, I got the budget and a couple of other things, but not all the backup information.
Yeah, so I'll get that. All right, what else?
Does advisory have liaisons the way they one time did?
We do, yeah. There's been a little bit of an upheaval, and based upon Joe's request for that, I have the list that we had last year, and I just have not had the time to put it together. I was going to do a once-over, get rid of the folks that were on the committee last year, and then I was going to have copies. I never got to it. That was my game plan for tonight. So I will also make sure that I have that for next week.
Well, if you have an electronic form or something that I can pick up from Linda or whatever, that'd be even better. Sooner than that, just so that I can get up to speed on this stuff.
Sure.
That's the principal question that I have, I guess.
Liaisons and backup information.
Oh, yeah, one other. You write the minutes?
Mm-hmm.
I'd be happy to take notes. I do minutes for the groups that I chair, and it's very difficult to do that. And so if you would like either rotate it around, or if you'd like me to do minutes on your behalf, I'd be happy to do it.
If you're up for doing minutes, sure.
I do them for almost every thing I'm involved in, and so I'd be happy to do it.
What I've been doing is generally take notes as we go throughout the meeting, and then I just I just dictate them into my iPhone into an email, check it out, and then send them over to
Okay,
Linda.
well, why don't I write up tonight's, and if they're acceptable to you, then you can decide whether or not I should continue with that.
That's fine. So my game plan was to vote on, we had the assessors, and I was so excited to get them out of the room that I actually stopped, I neglected to vote. So then I brought in, I have a game, there's a very good game plan here, that was what was in my head. So I'm like, all right, well, that's no big deal, because, agriculture will be quick, and then I'll just, condense the votes all in one, just one vote, and it'll also save on the minutes, because I was going through the minutes, and I'm like, oh, Craig made the motion, Joe seconded, I'm like, yes. And then all of a sudden, Connie's like, I gotta go because I'm not feeling so well. So she was here for those things, and then she left. So I'm inclined, we still have a quorum, but,
Do you think she'd be offended if?
I don't think she'd be offended, and I don't think she would,
They voted on some last week when you were in, so.
Yeah.
If you weren't offended, I'd say go ahead.
All right. So that's a good point, Ken. And I was not offended. So when we look at agriculture 179, there's one number. They came in and they gave a justification for how they came out to that number. And in my opinion, it looks pretty good.
They're off by $1.
Yeah, they're off by $1.
Inflation.
So, in my opinion, the number that is in the budget, we can give them that extra $1. And then on Board of Assessors, 141, again, absent of, wages and longevity, which we don't control, that, everything else, for the most part, everything else is, flat relative to last year. The big part of purchase of services were the contracted services of Mr. Manzello, so, I'll entertain a motion to accept 141 Board of Assessors and 179 Agricultural Commission as is in the budget.
So move.
Second.
All those in favor, say aye. Aye. All those opposed? All right. Passes, 5-0. So, on the agenda, discuss draft minutes. So, we've got the minutes, take those home, take a look at them, see what's going on. We'll go through those next week. Maybe next week. Do you guys think we might, where are we with the draft warrant? Are you guys just kind of putting some final touches on it? You think we might have a copy by next week, or everything has to be finalized by the end of the month, correct?
Yes.
All right.
I don't see why not, what you think. We just quickly went through it.
Yeah.
Obviously, there's some tweaking, obviously, the budget numbers and the like, and I make some decisions about the traffic lights.
Yeah.
And if it sounds like we're gonna take the backhoe off, we're gonna get rid of that. Then you guys gotta figure out where you're gonna pay for all this stuff. Just minor details.
Yeah.
The taxes from Brad's edition.
That's right.
I think that's a shared job, as I recall.
Yeah. All right. And we, so a couple things. Craig, do you want to provide an update on what you were looking into with telephone?
Sure, if you like.
Sure.
So I asked Lorraine at the Department of Public Services over there for a copy of their phone bills and all. And I think there's a lot of, waste isn't quite the right word, opportunities for improvement. There's 4 different phone bills for the same month they found. One of them is like $400. It seems to cover 2 lines. Another one is 11 lines, I believe, maybe 10, another $400. A third one is actually $100, but it's covering one of the numbers that's already been paid for with with one of the first two bills. The actual telephone number is the same. I don't understand that at all. I thought that with a little, little reconfiguration, I don't know their innards over there, but it seems like we have too many phone systems there, especially if we're getting rid of dispatch over there. I imagine we could separate it. But more interesting to me, although that was kind of interesting so far, but they have about a $400 or $500 a month wireless bill, and it's covering 11 lines. Of those 11 lines, 10 of them have unlimited data, and they all or almost all have. All the phones. There are 4 air cards in there. All the phones have 400 minutes shared each, something like that. The total amount of minutes they have allocated is 2,500. That is, they share apparently a 2,500 maximum. They use less than 400 across the group. The 11 phone numbers, which includes the 4 air cards, those all combined.
And they were looking for another 3 air cards.
If you were looking for another 3, I was going to mention that.
All right, sorry.
Of those 11, all combined doing unlimited data, they use a total of less than 5 gigabytes of data per month. Chief Alfano's phone is apparently sitting in a drawer and wasn't used at all in that month. Lorraine has 2 phones. I don't know why. Most of the data transfer is actually being done by 3 officers. I don't need to know the names. I do have them, but it doesn't matter. It's on the order of 1.5 gigabytes per user. The air cards, one of those is not used apparently. I haven't heard that, but there was 0 data usage on it for that month. The other 3 air cards were less than 100 megabytes? Less than 100 megabytes of data? Or was it kilobytes? I can't remember anymore. It was in my mail.
It was low usage is the bottom line.
It was an extremely low usage. And I think that, I don't know if it's we or they or a consultant, somebody should be able to come up with, I assume, a much better deal for us. Because we're simply not using anywhere near the amount of data that we've been allotted. We're paying $40 an air card, and I don't know what your typical more limited system is, but if I'm obviously I'm not my family's not a critical usage thing like the the police or whatever it is, but I'm sure I can put a new iPad on my phone system on my wireless bill for $10 a month and have it share my 10 gigabyte plan with everybody else in my family. I don't know how many, there must be a limit on that too, but I could imagine we could be saving a pile of dough per year, even on just the wireless thing. If you add in the other ones, you could be saving quite a bit more.
So did Lorraine happen to follow up? I mean, she was helpful in getting all this information to you, and you looked it over, analyzed it.
Yeah.
Was there a follow-up back to her and suggestions on her behalf or questions?
This is relatively new. I only got the actual phone bills last Friday or last Wednesday, middle of last week sometime. And I sent her mail about it last Friday, about the same time I sent you something about it. And she has not gotten back to me, which is okay. I mean, it hasn't been very long.
Yeah.
But it seems like, I think what might be happening is we're probably using the phone company as our PBX or something. We don't have any equipment in there that can reapportion phone lines throughout the building. I'm just guessing. But I suspect there's some space for improvement.
Are the carriers that we're using with the bills, are they all from the same company?
It's all Verizon and Verizon Wireless.
Is there any kind of an initial scope of work or how they came to what we have now. I'm thinking you design for averages, but also the police department has to be capable of an emergency, and maybe something is different during that peak, and you design for that, but I don't know.
I don't know, and I vaguely recall some of the discussions surrounding phone systems and whatnot, and it was actually a police officer who was also doing some of the IT configuration and phone stuff, who is no longer with the department, who was the prime driver for a lot of this.
Do they have an IT focal point now?
I don't know.
Yeah, I mean, Gary is not, he's not allowed, or there's certain rules.
Well, what we're considering is that, once dispatch goes, then the IT requirements for that building drop down considerably, and it may just be possible that Gary can pick that up as part of his activities. So that's one of the things that Don's looking at. So, I think, in general, the IT costs will be going down considerably, which is part of, the savings, if you will, for that.
Yeah.
As a starter, would Verizon offer a complimentary review of the system? I know it's not in their interest to reduce it, but often vendors, to remain credible, will provide services.
I would think so.
It's worth a question to them.
I think in like any service, we should be going out periodically and essentially rebidding it.
Sure.
And part of that should be them reviewing the usage and saying, we can give it, we want to keep you as a customer, but you don't need everything you've got. But 1 month of data is a little bit, to Brad's point, is a little bit,
Yeah, and so, but it's also.
Go back to the last ice storm and see what it looked like.
But it's also not just in the police silo, right? I mean, your example, completely agree, it should be across the entire town, and I would hope the town is already.
I think a lot of the phone, or at least town hall phone, Don did a couple of years ago, and saved a fair amount of that one.
I completely agree, yeah, no doubt.
I think,
Because these things grow ad hoc.
They do, yeah. I mean, you get a new person in and they need a phone, and you just go and get one and add it on, and,
Right, and also sometimes plans change and the phone company doesn't necessarily tell you that the plan has changed. Have you talked to Don at all about?
No, I only found out about this.
Yeah, you might want to chat with him, because he may be doing some things, in parallel as well, so. No sense in having redundant things going on.
And I don't know whether DPW has some wireless,
That's a good thought.
and be able to merge all of,
They do. They
all
have
of that into one contract together.
At least there used to be some.
Well, I think it is ripe for a review. I mean, trying to call the town hall, and, you can't, there's something going on here. I mean, I want to talk to Nanachka, but she shares a phone with the truck. Like, you guys don't have your own, each have your own phone and voicemail? Like, there's no, it's kind of, I'm not advocating spending more money, but it seems odd. It really seems odd that, you can't get through to a certain person when you want to.
Well, I think also part of the, again, recollection from being on the building committee for the public safety building, there was some talk that, and it may be because of some of this extra cost that we're bearing, to be able to, like when there's an emergency, they go into the emergency management center. They can basically take the phone that they have on their desk and they can plug it in, and that number will get automatically rerouted. And I believe there was some discussion about, at some point, tying the phones in this building to that system as well, as a way to streamline. But again, that was when that was 6, 7, 8 years ago when all the planning was done. So I don't know how far that has occurred, but you might want to chat with Don about that too.
So would your preference be that we work with Don rather than police department itself?
Well, just to keep him in the loop, because I mean, there may be some other ancillary discussions going on, and if there's something where maybe Don can take a look at this, and to your point, in the grander scheme of maybe it is time to do some rebidding of that. you may not necessarily achieve anything by going through it now, but I mean, it's gonna be Don that's gonna have to reach out to the phone company to get some rebidding, to get some things changed. You know, it's good that you're pointing it out, but, you know, it's not really Advisory's spot to be renegotiating phone contracts.
Yeah.
You know,
No.
and I don't think you wanna do that.
People seem to be trying to get me into a whole mess of stuff. I'm
You
all
should
stocked up.
concentrate on the addition and the pool.
Yeah. I told you, I was trying to do my part.
We have a Verizon landline and one phone call saying, hey, this is outrageous, and 20% reduction, just like that, just for whining a little bit.
Yeah, and Verizon Wireless did the same thing in rationalizing what I have at home, so. It's different, business obviously is different, but I think contacting them every so often is a good idea.
Oh, yeah.
So Craig, I'll forward your email on to Don, and if he has any questions, I mean, he knows where to get you, and just...
If you like, I had more details going over to Lorraine, so if you want, I can send it directly to you.
Yeah,
That would be
good.
good.
I'm out of the loop.
That's
Perfect. Yeah, and I think, I mean, I presume you guys are planning on doing that anyways, of a review of service and light when the switch goes over.
Oh, yeah, absolutely,
So,
yeah.
All right, so I need to check in with Linda. Off the top of my head, I don't recollect who's scheduled for next week, but I know we need to spend some time at some point.
You're calling back Pat Dunsettler.
Yeah, Pat needs to come back in. I mean, Browning needs to come back in, and then we were gonna take a look through at some of Ted's numbers on fuel and energy, and then I guess, you know, whatever remaining departments we haven't reviewed. So
Did we finalize the police budget?
we haven't finalized that. No. You know, we'll do that when we talk to Ted with, you know, fuel and,
Okay.
so yeah.
Funny, one of the things is, we are not going to staff the,
Yeah, so, yeah.
we're just gonna see how it works with putting a phone there for Lorraine to deal with things, and obviously, there's a live feed and dispatch. And then we'll really strictly track who's coming in for what, you know. Chief Nelson says it's not as much as you think, and most of it is fairly unimportant stuff. You know, there are more, need to go to the bathroom and get directions or get a piece of paper than people walking in with gunshot wounds. So, you know, if that trend continues, then, you know, then we'll let it go a year and see what happens. And if it looks like we might need to do something, we will. But we can always add. It's, you know, it's easier to add than have to subtract.
Partway through, if we find it's a disaster, then we'll, you know, we'll be down here getting some more money to put somebody in there or something. Yeah, well, you know, but we can always adjust it.
What's the latest on the date? What's the latest on the date for the shutdown or the turnover?
Don's
officially June 30th.
June 30th.
Okay, I'm just wondering.
But we'll see if we can do something
He
to...
has a meeting there later this week. Things appear to be ahead of schedule, but we don't have a firm date yet, so I wouldn't want to...
I was just curious.
Wouldn't want to commit to camera on what that is yet.
All right, well, we were just doing our best to put you on the spot.
Yeah.
All right.
And we did our best to dance around it.
All right, well, if there's no other news to discuss, I'll entertain a motion to adjourn.
So,
Second.
All right. All those in favor, say aye. Aye. All those opposed? All right, have a nice evening, everyone.
You too.